Welcome to Straight from the Source with Haley Watson. Our guest today is Red Bluff's Police Chief Quintan Ortega. Chief, thank you for being with us today.
Hi, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm excited about the opportunity to speak with you and tell you about Red Bluff.
So, first of all, how did you get involved, in law enforcement altogether?
Back in 1997, I was going to college and looking for a different avenue. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, so I was in a job training center and saw a flyer for a part-time community service officer position, which is a non-sworn position. I contacted the number on the flyer, and it was the commander for the Red Bluff Police Department. He invited me over at that moment to talk with him about the position, and he offered me the job at that time, so I became a part-time community service officer for the Red Bluff Police Department in January of 1997.
Okay, so back in the 90s, meaning this is home for you, right? Red Bluff's where you grew up?
I wasn't born in Red Bluff,
okay,
but I was raised in Red Bluff after 3rd grade, so the summer before 4th grade. So I've been in Red Bluff for almost my entire life. I moved out to Arizona for a little while, but came back. All my children were born in Red Bluff. I've been in Red Bluff with the Red Bluff Police Department for 28 years.
Red Bluff's a pretty unique place. What about it do you love the most or think it really sets it apart?
The community itself. I love small cities, small towns. I feel that in policing you can still make a difference with the community. It's not so large that you're just lost in a number or in a crowd.
Yeah.
So the community is small enough to where we can go out and meet unique people and communicate with the residents and the citizens and the visitors who come there. So it's important for me to be able to go out and meet those people and find out what they want and what they expect from their police department and what we are as a policing agency and how we can better serve the community.
So how long have you been chief now?
I started in January of 2025, so I'm about 6 months in.
Okay, and you've been with the department, though, theoretically, since the late 90s.
Yes.
Even as a community service officer. I mean, this has been your place.
Yes.
So tell me, back in the 90s versus today, when it comes to public safety concerns, how have things changed?
The policing and society in general have changed immensely from when the late 90s. A lot of it comes with the legislature and the laws that are in effect and how we can police those laws and how those laws get communicated to the public and how we can present that and educate the community about what the laws mean and how we can implement the strategies when we try to enforce what society says this should be how we should behave.
Right. So what are some of the big laws that have maybe changed or evolved that have shifted things for you?
A lot of the decriminalization of drug possession makes it more difficult for people to stay in jail when they might need to be there or to seek the treatment that they need to be able to move on from whatever ailment that they have. So that part is difficult. And then just the system in general for trying to have justice for the criminal element. The system makes it more difficult with the laws that are in place along with staffing. So having the staffing to be able to staff a jail and keep people in because you can have the staffing to be able to provide adequate service.
Yeah.
And also for the laws that are in place to be able to keep people in jail. In the early 90s, you could stay in jail for a simple misdemeanor and have that process go through the court system.
Right.
And nowadays, when you're arrested for a misdemeanor, most of the time you're walking out before the police officer has even completed their paperwork.
It's almost just a waste of gas money to drive somebody and book them, right?
It's difficult for the new officers, this newer generation, to see that they put in this hard work and there's no teeth in the system to be able to keep the people who commit crimes, holding them accountable. So it takes more of that crime to be able to hold just that simple person accountable for whatever crime that they've committed as long as it's a non-violent.
Right. I remember, gosh, it wasn't that long ago. It was before Prop 36 was voted into law. And there was some shoplifter arrest or maybe a shoplifter citation, it was, I think in Chico, where somebody had gone into Target, filled up their cart, loaded up their trunk, went back in, filled it up with more stuff, and was unloading the second round when finally police showed up and started to arrest that person. And they said, well, wait a minute, I've been counting and it's under the threshold. So I thought it wasn't a crime to take as long as I didn't hit the $1,000 or whatever it was. And it's funny because, of course, we know that's not the case, but essentially that's how it feels, it seems like.
Yeah, once a person is in the system or they've been arrested multiple times for whatever crime it is, they learn what they can and can't do and what those thresholds are to keep them just under to where they don't serve, longer terms.
Right. So do you think that Prop 36 has made a difference already? And do you think that, like, criminals are kind of maybe scaling back?
It has made a difference. It's given law enforcement better avenues to tackle the problems when it comes to repeat offenders. And there's some other nuances within the law that make it a little more challenging to provide the service that we need to provide. But in all, it's a better system to be able to take people to jail and hold them accountable for the criminal acts that they accomplish.
Okay. Right now, what are some of the biggest issues when it comes to, like, public safety in Red Bluff? Like, what are the crimes that you see the most?
A lot of the crimes are quality of life crimes. So everything's so expensive, and when a person doesn't lock their vehicle, or if they're gone for a long time and someone notices that, when your stuff gets stolen from your vehicle or your house is burglarized, just the small stuff that impact your daily routine, that stuff really has an impact on the community. It's not so much the large violent crimes that are occurring all the time. It's all the small stuff on a daily basis where if it's not locked up or hidden away and then it gets stolen, it's frustrating. And for a community to have that impact on quality of life issues, it makes it more difficult. So every city and every county has violent crime. But the most impact on a community, I think, is just the small crimes that happen on a daily basis that disrupts your routine, and it makes it more difficult for, if your wallet is stolen, all your credit cards are gone, and how much trouble do you have to go through to get those back? Right. And is someone else using that? So those things are such a headache for the community and for residents that it's difficult to tackle that. Yeah, okay. There are a few things, though, people can do to be a little bit more proactive about their personal safety, though, right? I mean, it's something from growing up as a kid in the 80s and 90s in Agora Hills of the suburbs in Southern California, where nobody locked their door ever and never heard about anything. And then throughout my life moving to, like, LA and living in the city, I learned really quickly you have to lock your door, right? And when you park your car somewhere, you shouldn't leave items that you could see in it. Maybe go running with your German Shepherd, or two of them, like I do in the morning if I go running, by myself. Do you feel like the public has enough, like, education about that, or are they pretty proactive, or could we be doing more? I think most residents and citizens are proactive when it comes to that. We can always do a better job in educating the community on the safety tips or what you can do to become safer in your community. Red Bluff is a small community, and we like that community for a reason, because it is small and you can know who your neighbor is. So going out and contacting your neighbors and speaking with them and to get to know the person who lives next to you or down the block will go a long ways to providing safety for yourself. So we want our community to be out on the streets and walking around, enjoying the parks and enjoying the residential community, as long as you can do it safely and get to know the people that are in your community, so you can know, well, maybe that person doesn't really live in this area, or something doesn't look right, and then report that to the police department, or at least talk about it with your other neighbors, so we can determine, is something going on, or is it just somebody walking through there because they're enjoying the Red Bluff community? Yeah, that's true. What do you think of neighborhood watch groups versus people making citizens arrests versus crossing the line into vigilantism? I think as a resident and as a citizen, you should always be guarded and do your best to provide safety in your own community. That doesn't mean that you should be a vigilante, but you should be aware and be cognizant of what's happening in your community. Yeah. So neighborhood watch groups are great because it opens up the door for communication to your neighbors and everyone that lives in your area.
Right.
For vigilantism, you can cross the line pretty easily when it comes to trying to take justice in your own hands, and it's better to communicate that with your law enforcement. Even though law enforcement takes time, we investigate a crime, or it takes time for us to contact the people that are involved.
Yeah.
So it might not be as quick as you would want, but we just ask for patience so we can go out and contact the people who are involved and try to determine what happened and who's at fault, and hopefully the justice system can hold them accountable.
Right. So if I see somebody trying to steal my bike, right, and I feel like I'm definitely much bigger and stronger and tougher than them, obviously, right, would I get in trouble for trying to detain them while I call 911?
No.
Okay, so that's technically allowed as long as you're not putting yourself at risk. You're not going to frown on that.
Well, you have to do what's reasonable. So if you try to take your bike back and you go to the extreme and you severely injure the person, then you might find yourself in a little bit of trouble.
Okay.
'Cause you want to do something that's not so egregious that you overstep your bounds and you actually put somebody in a hospital because they're
Right.
taking a piece of property.
Yeah.
But you can still protect yourself and protect your property, but you have to do that within reason.
Okay. So within the city of Red Bluff, gosh, within any city, of course, drug use is an issue, right? That's the world we live in. Do you see manufacturing of any sort? Like, do you ever see meth labs, or do you see people growing enough pot that they plan to sell, or is it more like the drugs just come in?
It's both. So people will do what they need to do to feed that beast, so to speak. It's drugs come in, people will try to grow or chemicalize whatever product that they have. So in every community you have people who are wanting to do that because it's a sickness or they have some sort of addiction to whatever drug of choice that they have. So it can be difficult at times because you can live next door to somebody who has some type of lab in their home and you may not know it until something bad happens. So that's why it's important for us as a community to talk to our neighbors, get to know our neighbors, and not just stay inside with the shutters drawn so you don't know what's going on in your own neighborhood.
Yeah.
And that's when you call the police. So people do create labs and try to do some of that stuff. It's not very frequent, but it does happen, and we do our best to try to mitigate that and make the community safer.
Okay. I feel like in the last, 5 years or so, we've seen more teen violent crimes. Maybe I don't know, it's just a perception that I have, but it seems like there's something going on with kids these days. Is there any sort of trend that you're tracking with that?
I think some of that comes in waves. It depends on the generations and how they're raised and what their influences are. Obviously, social media and the platforms that come with that, or some of the video games that they might play, have a distorted reality for them. It can be dangerous for the juveniles to come out and think that they're making a difference in their own mind for whatever crime that they're committing. The laws for the juveniles are different than the laws for adults. So sometimes they think that it's easier for them to go out and commit crimes, or maybe an adult's asking them to commit crimes because the laws are different for them.
Right.
So I think it comes in waves. So there's not necessarily a trend right now that there's a bunch of juveniles going around committing crimes.
Right.
It just sometimes it happens and sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's gang affiliated, which a lot of times that's when you have the juveniles committing some of the more dangerous crimes because it's gang affiliated, and we do our best to try to determine what is happening and how can we prevent more of that from happening.
What gangs would you say are the most prevalent in Red Bluff?
It's hard to say which ones are more prevalent because they might have an affiliation with their own gang, something that they make up. So I don't know that I want to say that there's a specific gang or there's a gang problem in the North State. It's whatever they choose to affiliate themselves with and what they think that might be.
Okay.
What does the graffiti say as you're driving through the community? It could be something that they've generated themselves or something that's, have national attention.
Okay. back to the social media idea of social media in general. So do you ever get on Instagram, TikTok, doom scroll? Do you ever feel like you're just addicted to your phone?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think we're all human, and we all get sucked into that hole that it is social media, and you just scroll through and you
Right.
look for, what's going on or what grabs your attention, then you go down the rabbit hole, and like, now it's 2 hours later and you're like, what just happened to
Right.
me? And I didn't accomplish anything. It's so easily to be sucked into that social media and what's going on the reels.
So what's on your algorithm? Like mine always gives me cute animal videos, and then people who like take school buses and turn them into really cool RVs. Like that's all I see, that and cute puppies.
Well, I think now that we're having this conversation, I'm going to see cute puppies and probably RVs because our phones are always listening
to us.
So I'm sure that's going to be popping up on my reels. So it just depends on what I'm researching for the day, or what funny reel or some TikTok that I saw that's that makes me laugh, and then all of a sudden you get reels for that.
Okay, so if you can acknowledge what I believe to be an obvious truth, that the robots are already listening, whether they're programmed to or not, and that there is going to be a robot takeover someday, where do you stand on that?
I think AI is scary.
Yeah.
As much as the artificial intelligence makes our life easier and creates a better working and personal life for the product that it is, I think it's also dangerous, because how can you tell when some of it's real and some of it's not real? I think, like yesterday, I just saw some reels that were going through. A lady was sitting on a wagon. She's like, is this wagon real, or am I real? And then, the wagon goes away and she was sitting on a picnic table.
Oh, so weird.
And it looks real.
Yeah.
And I think that's the danger for kids when they're looking at that and they're so influenced by what they're seeing and what they're visualizing in front of them on that social media. I think that's dangerous for all of
Yeah.
us. And with AI, when you can't tell if it's real or not, if that's a real person or a real product on there, what kind of influence do we have in our communities and in society at that point?
Yeah. No, it'll be very interesting to see what happens in the next few years. Not even decades, just few years. But I'm sure there are some ways that you use AI in policing to make your job easier or to crack down on crime better.
Well, we're flirting with the idea of using AI for report writing. Part of that has to come through the DA's office on what's an acceptable practice, because as an officer writes a report, you have to sign your name saying that that is the most accurate account of what occurred.
Okay.
And if AI is writing it, it's not like AI is foolproof.
Right.
So we're toying with that idea in law enforcement on how we can incorporate AI into a better platform to write the reports quicker and keep our officers out in the field so they're more visible and they're able to reduce crime the best way that we can.
So would it work like if you go up to a suspect that you have like the body cam essentially like recording it, the audio, and then AI would take that audio recording of everything that went down and just create like a report that way?
Yeah, there's
Interesting.
companies that do that right now.
Yeah.
We've demoed some of that stuff, not at the Rebel Police Department, but we've seen some of those demos where it records it on your body camera, and then when it uploads, it provides it into a report format. And that's some of the danger is it true and accurate? And you have to spend the time to go through that to make sure there's no errors.
Right.
So I think that's some of the struggle that law enforcement is going to have and the district attorney is going to have to determine how we can incorporate that into a better platform
Right.
for report writing.
Interesting. What would you be most likely to use ChatGPT or something like that for in your personal life?
I've tried to resist some
Really?
of that ChatGPT.
Oh, you're going to get sucked in.
A lot of our folks are using that because it's easy and it's pretty accurate, and it provides you a good template to go through on whatever topic is
Yeah.
that you're writing. So I've only used it a couple times so far, but it's pretty dangerous, and I can see it being a useful tool as we move forward.
Okay, so I'm going to give you a word of advice, right? So I like the idea of veering away from it when it comes to creative stuff, because you want to use your mind and you want what you generate in the workplace or put out in the world to be coming from you. But if you're trying to figure out what to watch and you know you're in the mood for something like, well, I really like Jurassic Park and I really like The Terminator, but I don't like XYZ, what movie should I watch? Oh my gosh, it'll give you the best list. And that's way quicker than scrolling through Netflix for an hour.
Yeah, I think my wife likes to use it most for vacationing. So we're going to go here. What should we do? And
Right.
it gives you an itinerary, and it's pretty good.
Yeah, I love that. It's like it really, and that kind of thing though makes you wonder, well, what is that going to mean for travel agents in the future? Like it's
Yeah.
just, it's going to have such an impact on our entire society in so many ways and change jobs. And yeah, we're living through a very interesting time right now.
It is, and I wonder how it's going to impact the future generations because they're not putting in the time and the research to learn this stuff on their own.
Right.
It's pretty simple just to ask somebody else to do it for you.
Right.
And what does that mean when it comes to education
Yeah.
or other jobs in
Right.
in our society?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah, so when it comes to policing, I guess ring cams, that sort of thing, it's not exactly AI, but it's another tool that we've seen in use a lot more. I mean, I know that we have 6 ring cams at my house because my husband always wants to know what every squirrel in the yard is doing at all times. Sometimes there's foxes or skunks. So, no, but we actually have seen bad guys. Like we saw someone with a ski mask come up and kind of stare at his truck and decide whether or not he wanted to smash the window, and he eventually walked away, luckily. But I'm sure that having more and more homes equipped with those, that's probably helped catch the bad guys, right?
Yeah, most law enforcement agencies have some sort of registry system where you can register that you have cameras at your house, and that helps law enforcement when there is a crime or something happens in that area. We can look up in the registry to say, okay, we have cameras at these locations, and then we would go out to those locations to see if there's actually cameras, and then try to contact the people who own them to determine if there is actually video footage or not of whatever happened.
Yeah.
So it's a great tool for law enforcement when a resident or someone in the community has that video surveillance and is willing to provide it to law enforcement for us to use.
Do you see any downsides to somebody if they're deciding whether or not to get like a ring cam for their home or whatever brand they wanted to? I mean, there isn't really a downside, is there?
I don't think so. I think, well, if you look at the downside as far as we're relying on other entities, there's a third party that
Right.
gathers that video, so what happens to the video on the other side? You take a chance and you put your faith into whatever
That's
that
true.
company is and what their ethical behavior is for whatever videos that they're receiving.
Right. And I've heard of hackers too who hacked onto those cameras, and you'll hear some stranger's voice. I mean, I've only heard of it 3 times maybe, but still, it's creepy and weird to think about.
Yeah, you're always susceptible to some type of other source,
Right.
Gaining access to whatever it is that you have. But I think for most of us, we're probably pretty safe. I don't know that we're so important that somebody wants to know what our daily
That's kind of
lives
what
are
I
looking
say.
like.
If somebody really wants to watch me pull weeds, I mean, that's okay.
Yeah.
That's all right with me. What about those different like genealogy, 23andMe, those sort of things? Have you guys ever been able to do some sort of DNA match based on somebody putting their data into those?
I know law enforcement has utilized that in the past. If you do a quick Google search on some large cases of how they've identified who the suspect was in those cases, it's a useful tool. I don't know that it was originated to be able to be used by law enforcement, but it is a good tool for us to have. It can be used as long as it's in the right way.
Okay. So California has some very strict gun laws, and there are arguments to be made on either side. Some people say that, places where there are more guns, where they have open carry, you see less crime. Other people say, well, countries where guns are almost completely banned, you never see school shootings. Where do you stand on that?
I think every citizen who has the right to carry should carry as long as they do it responsibly. I think the Second Amendment is there for a reason, and I think the more people that do carry might deter some criminal element, because if you can do it responsibly and you've earned the right to carry that weapon because you've done the appropriate training, then I believe it's a good thing for any person who chooses to do so.
Okay. When it comes to training in terms of your own law enforcement officer. So this is actually something really cool I saw recently at the Butte County Sheriff's Office, where they have this virtual training, and it's kind of like 3D, and it's these scenarios where you come, up across some people maybe on the side of the road, and it's a situation like, what would you do in this situation? You have to respond. What do you do in terms of your officers, and do you have anything like that? I mean, do you continue to train even after you've been through police academy?
Well, that's one of the most important aspects of law enforcement is continuous training. Much of what we do is perishable, and if we don't continue to train and learn new and better skills, then I don't know that we're doing a service to our community the way that it was meant to be. So continuous training, learning new ways to be more efficient in policing, I think is invaluable when it comes to the changes that society has and the changes in policing, and just being open and upfront with our community on how we approach any situation. And obviously we're not talking about the tactics that's involved, because you don't necessarily want to tell people how you're going to do it or what specific tactics that you use, because then sometimes the criminal element can thwart some of that.
Right.
So it's a balancing act, but to learn and train is very important for our profession. I think the moment that you stop training, you're going to find yourself in trouble.
Okay. We've seen a lot of people, it seems like there are more crazy people. I don't know how to say that in a nice way. It seems like there are more crazy people out there these days. I don't know if it is a mental health crisis, a drug crisis, a combination of all the things, but I can imagine that that's a really difficult situation for a law enforcement officer to be in when they're going up against somebody who is probably a danger to themselves, definitely a danger to others, obviously not in a sane state of mind. How do you guys navigate that?
I think that's where when we were talking about training, is how do you train to become better? Society relies on law enforcement to do non-criminal contacts. So sometimes it feels like everything comes to law enforcement and we're expected to solve and handle everything that society has to offer. So I don't know that you can say that there's one issue as far as mental health or drug addiction or some other issue that's the sole reason why people might be crazy or they're acting crazy.
Right.
So I think it's a combination of probably drug addiction, mental health issues, some sort of other trauma that's occurred in their life, and at some point they end up on the street and law enforcement is called, and we do the very best that we can to understand their crisis. We undergo crisis intervention training, so how to talk to people to try to navigate what resource that they need to try to get them off of the street, or just to solve the problem for that point in time, so they're not a danger to the public or a danger to us, and try to get them the resources that they need to be a better citizen and a productive member of society.
Do you feel like the Red Bluff Police Department or the city of Red Bluff has pretty good resources for your officers? Say somebody was involved in an officer-involved shooting, right? And I mean, whether it's justified or not, taking a life or injuring somebody can't be easy. It can't be an easy thing to live with, right? You're always going to question, did I make the exact right decision that I feel good about having made in that moment? What kind of support is there for your people?
Well, those critical incidents are some of the worst to be involved in. It's not comfortable for the officer, and it's not comfortable for the community or for the family. It's very difficult to be in those predicaments and in those incidents, because it's hard. We're all human, and to be involved in that, it's a very big struggle, and that's where we go into officer wellness and how we can move past that and still be productive as a police officer when you have to go through an incident like that.
Yeah.
For the city of Red Bluff, we are very fortunate that our city council supports us and provides us with everything that they can within the financial realm. Obviously, there's not an abundance of money that we can have everything that we want, but the city council supports us, and our city manager's name's Tom Westbrook. He's a great person, and he's one of the best bosses that I've ever had the pleasure to work with, and he supports public safety. He supports all of his employees, and trying to provide the best and most resources that we need to have public safety be important for all of our community and all of our citizens, so we can do the best job that we can when we're faced with any type of critical incident. And because Red Bluff is a smaller community, we don't have enough resources to do it on our own. So we work very well with our partner agencies, and anytime there's a crisis, we will reach out if we need the help to some of the other entities that are in the county or within the city to come and help us.
Okay, so for you, before you were chief, were you, I'm sure there were times that you were out on as a patrol officer. Like, what was your different stages of?
So I started as a part-time community
yeah,
service
yeah.
officer, then I became a full-time community service officer, and then I went to the city sponsored me to the police academy
Okay.
in 1999. So I became a police officer, and then I promoted to a sergeant.
Okay.
Then I worked just a very short time in as a detective sergeant, and then I promoted to captain, and then from police captain I became police chief.
Okay, so at the time when you were out on the streets, if you will, what were some of the, maybe the most bizarre, what was the most bizarre encounter that you had in terms of, like maybe a situation with a suspect?
Early in our careers, we've always heard some of the old timers or people that have spent so much time in the profession to say, write down notes, write down everything that you encounter, because someday you're going to write one of the best books.
Right.
I wish I had taken that advice, because some of the stuff that you see as a police officer, you can't make up. You scratch your head and you can't understand what would make another human being do that to another human being.
Yeah.
Or those situations where you like, how did that happen? So there's so many that it's hard to just pick one, because some of the stuff is just so interesting. And I think that's what makes policing so fun, is because you don't know what you're going to encounter on a daily basis. And that's what makes it so dangerous too, from the perspective of violence and from the perspective of physical, mental well-being, because it does take a toll. Talking about social media, you can see on there that you see some reels that say the average American will have 3 to 5 or 6 critical incidents in their lifetime, and police officers will have over 800 in their lifetime. So what impact does that have on the person, and how are they mitigating that? Because we all have bad days. So I think as a community, do you really want the police officer who's having one of the worst days that they've had, and they're not taking care of themselves as a person, and then now you're pulled over by the police officer who's having one of the worst days that they've had?
Yeah.
And what is that interaction going to look like? So for us as a city, we're doing the best that we can to provide resources to our people so they can come to work and be in a good mood, and to have the best training possible so we can provide the absolute best service that we can to the community.
Yeah, okay. Can you think of one time that was maybe the most challenging for you?
I think any critical incident.
Yeah.
So because it's difficult when you're involved in that. So if you're involved in a shooting, or if you're involved in a child death or some sort of sexual abuse of a child, it's difficult because you relate that to your personal life. If you have children and now you see the death of a child, or you see a child that's being abused, those take a toll on you, because we're all human. So as much as we try to say that it didn't bother us, it does. And then you have the cumulative effect. So if you have a span of 20 to 30 years in law enforcement, how can it not bother you when you see the very worst of human nature?
Right.
Because as a police officer, it's not that we're being called to somebody's house because they're having the best day imaginable.
Right.
It's call after call after call of someone who's been a victim of something. So it's very difficult. So I think anytime you have a critical incident where it gains the attention of the community, and you have a side that's saying the police did it right, and then you have a side that the police did it wrong, because there's always those sides. And it takes a toll on you, because you're doing the very best that you can, and you do what you think is right, and then sometimes they say that you should have done more.
So would you say that you still have an optimistic outlook about humanity? Do you feel like most people generally are well-intentioned?
I do.
Yeah?
I think it's a small minority that victimize the citizenry. I think the majority of our people in our society are good people, and we have good persons who are out there trying to help each other. And it's that small group that just provides destruction for everybody else. whatever the reason is. So yes, I hold optimism for us as a human race and for as a community. I think we're very fortunate to be up in the North State. I believe that all of our people have the best intentions when it comes to helping and supporting each other and being up in a community where we all value each other and that we can do the things that we need to do to get along with each other and provide a better life for each and every person that we come into contact with.
Okay. So what about you? When did you ever like break any laws when you were a kid? Shoplift from the Kmart, anything like that?
I don't think you can grow up and not, do something wrong.
Right.
So, I think we all have been in a position where, you probably have taken something you shouldn't have taken, and then you have to, hold your head down, and your parents have walked you back to the store to turn it back in. I remember being in elementary school, and on a recess, we jumped a fence and ran through the creek to go to the local candy store, and we bought candy on recess and then ran back and got caught by the teachers. And you're not supposed to leave campus, but we did because we wanted those now and laters.
Right.
So just little stuff like that.
Yeah, okay. So, because a lot of us, we look at law enforcement, it's like, oh, okay, we're the potentially bad guys, and you see those police sirens, and it's like, oh no, it's almost like law enforcement is this upper level of power that is all good, looking for the bad, but you guys are humans too.
It's crazy. So when was the last time you were driving down the road and a police officer comes behind you, and how did you feel?
Right, terrified. Even if I didn't think I was doing anything wrong.
Yeah.
Right, terrified.
And that's the same for me. Like, I'll be driving down in my personal vehicle and just going down the road, and if a police officer comes behind me, even for me,
your heart races?
Yeah, my heart races, and I'm like, what did I do? Was I speeding? Did I not turn my blinker on?
Yeah.
And they're just going about their day,
Right.
but we all, like, the police industry and us as a profession, when a police officer's behind you, you automatically like, what did I do wrong?
Right.
Or, how am I going to get in trouble because now they're behind me and
Right.
I'm going to get pulled over, and what is this going to look like? So
Right.
I think that's just, it's natural for us to look at that and be like, nobody wants a police officer to follow in behind them because you have the potential of being pulled over for something that you may or may not have known that you did.
It keeps us in check. We self-regulate because of the fear. So it's good, maybe.
Yeah, I think it's a good fear, and, you just go about your day and hope that, you're not speeding.
Yes. In your time in law enforcement, have there been any cases, like especially when you were a detective, where there was something weird that you couldn't piece together? Like maybe there was something supernatural at play or something just totally inexplicable?
It's difficult when you look at that. So when I was a detective sergeant, I just oversaw part of the detectives. So watching them work day in and day out to try to solve a problem or determine why something happened, or to get a suspect who we believe committed a crime to say that that person did it, or to say why they did it. I think those are the biggest struggles, and trying to determine why people behave the way that they do and what makes them tick or not tick. So it's just interesting, again, like trying to find a specific example of what that looked like is pretty hard because there's just so many that they all kind of blend together over time.
So never anything where you thought a human couldn't have committed this or anything like that. Like there's missing pieces, but you believe logically it'll pan out.
No, there's been several times where I'm like, how does a person do this to another person, and how did it even, how did that come to be?
Yeah, interesting. Okay. You have canines in law enforcement, right? Red Bluff Police Department still has a few?
We have one currently.
Did you just lose one?
We had one retire.
Yeah, okay. No, didn't die though.
No.
Must have been a different, okay.
No, we had one, so after his retirement, we had Manny.
Yeah.
So, and then we had Aries, and now we have Max. So Aries just retired, we have Max, and then we've identified another canine handler. We're just looking for a dog so we can have a second dog for our community.
How important are they in solving crimes that we just couldn't do without them?
They're extremely valuable, just not only from a deterrent standpoint, but in narcotics and building searches or searching for lost people. So their sense of smell is, invaluable that for them to be able to do the work that they do, that a normal police officer, we don't have the capability to be able to do that. So to use them as a tool for enforcement is pretty important.
I have to ask you, of course, about homeless camps within the city. I know that for a long time, while that navigation center was being set up, the city basically said they sanctioned areas where people could camp. Then there was the whole Supreme Court decision that basically said, well, even if you don't have shelter space, you can still clear camps. Where do things stand now, and how does it impact public safety?
We are doing a very good job at cleaning up our parks after the court decisions. So for a long time, just like in other areas, just like Chico, Redding, all the communities in California, we have a problem with homeless and transient individuals. So we have the ability now to clean up our parks to make them as pristine as we can so the community can enjoy them. So we're committing to making those parks presentable for our community and our families to get back in there. And it's been a difficult situation because you want to balance the rights of your citizens and the rights of the homeless population, and where's that gray area that is the sticking point. So every person should have the right to be free and move about this country and do what they want to do as long as they're not violating somebody else's rights.
Right.
So cleaning up our parks to make them presentable for the community is a priority for us, and that's the direction that we're headed. And the difficulty with law enforcement is trying to balance the rights between the community and the rights of a person to be able to move freely about the community as well.
I know that in Chico, that when they opened up the pallet shelter and they started offering, hey, here's a low barrier place that some people will qualify, others could go to the alternative site. A lot of people took resources that were given to them when they became available. And then there's just this one smaller group that I don't know if they call them resource or shelter resistant. Do you feel like in Red Bluff there are enough resources, or you have a group of people who they just want to live in the parks?
So that's part of the struggle that we were talking about a minute ago, is we have resources available. The city has a path navigation center that was built to provide those specific services. There's not enough services. Housing is probably the biggest thing that there's not enough of, is the low-income housing or transitional housing for someone to come out of homelessness. The people who want services will take the services, and there's people who don't want services, and that's the struggle, because we want them to be able to live the best life that they can, even if it's them choosing not to be housed, but we still have to have a clean environment for us to live in and for an area to be available to the community. So the struggle is who wants services, and then those who don't want services, we're going to look at enforcing the laws that we have in place to either move them along or to get them to take the services that are available to improve their situation.
Okay. How's that jail coming along? Are you looking forward to having the expansion completed, and how's that going to affect you?
So we work really well with the sheriff's office, and we're excited to have that expansion. The difficulty is the staffing is trying to find enough people who are qualified to work in law enforcement.
Right.
So that goes with jail staff and with regular policing is,
Okay.
Hiring has been extremely difficult in our profession for several years, and hopefully we can find enough people up here in the North State to be able to fill that jail with corrections officers and hopefully hold people who need to be held in jail so we can have a better community.
What about your department? Do you have vacancies right now? How's the salary you're able to offer? Do you feel good about it?
Again, our city manager and our council have done really well for us as a city to offer a competitive wage, so we have the ability to attract those who want to be in law enforcement. We currently have 5 sworn openings, and we have a few civilian staff that are open, and we have 2 sergeants openings and then 3 police officers right now. So we're in background with a couple people who we're hoping that will pass background, and fill those ranks. So in a department of 31 sworn officers, when we have 5 vacancies, that leaves a pretty big hole for us. And if we can fill those, then we provide better services to the community.
Okay. If you had to do it all over again, you could not be in law enforcement. What would your plan B career choice be?
It's hard because I love the profession of law enforcement. I think it's the best profession there because of the honor, the integrity, and the commitment that we have for our community and to provide service to those who are there. So if I had to choose something else, and I don't know that I could, I would probably be in the military.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Maybe for your retirement job.
I don't know. I'm this gray hair's there for a reason. So I think sticking with law enforcement and trying to make the younger generations and those who are just entering the profession, trying to teach them the right way and to be the best that they can be to accomplish the goals that we have in society and for our community, I think is the most important. I'm very proud of my family and for my sons and my daughter. So I have 5 children, and my eldest is in law enforcement. My middle son is in law enforcement, and I have twin boys that are in the military.
Oh, wow.
And so I have a 13-year-old daughter who I always joke with. I say, well, you only have 2 choices. It's either military or law enforcement.
Right.
So I'm very excited that our family has chosen the path of law enforcement and service because my wife is also in law enforcement. So that's all we know, and that's what we believe in. So I'm proud of the service of my family and what we've accomplished.
I love that. And so we can probably expect you to stay as chief for a while. You're not going to be retiring in the next year or two? Because what would you do? You'd be bored.
I don't know. Probably give my wife a hard time and then, be a better and more present father to the kids that I have. I've got 1 grandchild and 2 on the way, so that excites me to be able to be available and be present for them because, as you know, law enforcement is a 24/7 occupation. We don't have the ability to call in sick and just have nobody show up.
Right.
So we miss the birthdays, the holidays, and all the other functions because we've made a commitment and an oath to provide service to our communities. So it's an honorable profession, and I don't know that I would want to do anything else.
Okay. Last question. Before you're done as chief, what is your biggest overarching goal for your department, for your city?
I think to help carry the profession forward and to take care of our people. So having an environment at the Rebel Police Department where you have people who are excited to come to work because they believe in the work that needs to be done and that they believe that you're going to take care of them and they're going to be taken care of, them and their families. So the overarching goal for me is to provide an environment for our officers to know that we're going to take care of them as a city and as an agency. So if they're excited about coming to work, they're going to be excited about going into the community and interacting with the community and providing the best service and quality of life service that we can for our community. So creating that environment to where our community can look at police officers and know that they're going to be taken care of and that our police officers are well trained and they're going to do the right thing when it counts the most.
Okay. Chief, thank you so much. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks for listening today. I decided to offer this podcast after enough of you let me know that you wanted a deeper dive into certain stories than you get on our TV broadcasts. We elect certain people to represent our voice, but who are they really? My hope is that this podcast answers that question. I love your feedback, and I want to know who you'd like to hear from next. Just fill out that comment section and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or Spotify.